بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم لا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله العلي العظيم الحمد لله رب العالمين وصلى الله على سيدنا ونبينا أبي القاسم المصطفى محمد وعلى آله الطيبين الطاهرين لا سيما بقية الله في الأرضين أجل الله تعالى فرجه الشريف وجعلنا من أعوانه وأنصاره. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. إن الله عنده علم الساعة وينزل الغيث ويعلم ما في الأرحام وما تدري نفس ماذا تكسب غدا وما تدري نفس بأي أرض تموت إن الله عليم خبير. This is the verse 34 of chapter Luqman, which is the final verse of the surah. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala ends with emphasis on divine knowledge, and that because nothing can share this divine knowledge, so nothing can be put next to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala as another God, as idol or whatsoever. And at the same time, the objects which are mentioned are very important because again make us somehow concerned about akhirah. Some of them are concerning akhirah, and if we look carefully, we will see that, in my understanding, all these objects relate to life and death. Didn't we talk about the hereafter? وَاخْشَوْا يَوْمًا لَا يَجْزِي وَالِدٌ عَنْ وَلَدِهِ وَلَا مَوْلُودٌ هُوَ جَازٍ عَنْ وَالِدِهِ شَيْئًا. Now, the things which are mentioned here somehow all relate to life and death, but by focusing on divine knowledge about them. Let's have some translation of these sentences. Verily, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the one who has the knowledge of as-sa'a. As-sa'a literally means the time, the hour, but here means the day of judgment, qiyamah. Frequently in Quran and Hadith, we use as-sa'a with alif wal lam to refer to qiyamah, to day of judgment. And the point here is that the only one who knows where the day of judgment will come, when the day of judgment will come, is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. وَيُنَزِّلُ الْغَيْثِ, which means verily Allah is sending down the rain. So, and Allah is for all of them. إن الله عنده علم الساعة إن الله ينزل الغيث إن الله يعلم ما في الأرحام. Okay, these are all sharing the beginning. So Allah is the one who sends rain down. Some people had the idea that if, for example, they do sacrifice for their gods or goddess, or for their idols, then they may have rain. And sometimes they also use, some suspicious and superficial, things, to ask for rain from the nature or whatsoever. But the one who actually sends the rain down is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And whatever happens in the nature is the creation of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, as we said before. So this is the second point. The third, وَيَعْلَمُ مَا فِي الْأَرْحَامِ. Allah knows what is in the tomb of mothers, in the rahim of mothers. So Allah knows which kind of embryo, which sex, is it male or female, a boy or a girl, there. وَمَا تَدْرِي نَفْسٌ مَاذَا تَكْسِبُ غَدًا. And no one knows, no person knows. Human beings, maybe jinns also are meant, because those are also, responsible for what they do. They don't know what will they gain tomorrow. So they don't have knowledge about their next day. We are not talking about next year. We are not talking about another year, 10 years. No one knows even what is going to happen tomorrow. وَمَا تَدْرِي نَفْسٌ بِأَيِّ أَرْضٍ تَمُوتُ. And no one, no person knows in which place, in which land he or she will die. Although I may live for all my life, for example, in one country, but I don't know, maybe my death will be another country. You have heard the story of that person who was attending a meeting or ceremony of the Prophet Sulaiman, ala nabiyana wa alihi wa alayhi salam. And Israel also, in the form of a person, attended that meeting and that ceremony. And Israel looked at that man who was there with some sort of, suspicion or some sort of, wondering. So this person realized that Israel looked at him differently. So told the Prophet Sulaiman, it seems that Israel wants to, take away my life. And you have the power of, fast moving and, these things. So could you send me to another part of the world so that Israel, cannot. So the Prophet Sulaiman knew, that it's not going to work, but just, to please him, sent him to another part of the world. And then Israel went to receive, and take his soul in that place. And that person, was shocked. So Israel said, the reason that I was looking at you with some wonder was that I knew that I am going to receive your soul, but in another place. So I was wondering why you are here. And now you yourself, ask Suleiman to take you to that place. So no one knows in which land he is going to die. Sometimes, some people, when they are outside their home, their own town, they die. Sometimes they die in their own town. No one knows. إِنَّ اللَّهَ عَلِيمٌ خَبِيرٌ. Truly, Allah is knowledgeable and aware. Allah knows everything. And this is mentioned by two attributes, Alim and Khabir. And both mean knowledgeable. But maybe Khabir mostly is used for particular things, for details. Someone who knows details. And Alim is more general. It can be for details or can be for even universal and general concepts. Okay, first of all, if you look at all these five, you see all are related to life and death. Do you agree? Allah knows the day of judgment, when that will be. Allah knows and brings down the rain. The most apparent function of rain is to give life. Without rain, there will be no life on the earth. Okay, life is caused by rain, and in some verses of the Quran also we have that when rain comes, gives new life to the land. And we know that everything which is living is dependent on water. وَجَعَلْنَا مِنَ الْمَاءِ كُلَّ شَيْءٍ حَيٍّ. This is something which is mentioned by the Quran 14 centuries ago. And recent scientific inquiries all approve that. Without water, you can have no living being. So rain is very important. Knowing the embryo, this is the beginning of life. About your activities tomorrow, which is about your second day life. About the place of death. So everything is related to life and death. So I think this is somehow related to the issue of Yawmul Qiyamah that we had yesterday. And also it's important for making us more worried about our death and appreciating value of life. Remembering our death, if you remember, we said yesterday, helps you to appreciate your life better. So this is another point. Now, the point about divine knowledge. Some people have mentioned that this ayah refers to 5 things that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows and human beings do not know. For example, there is a hadith mentioned by Suyuti. Suyuti is one of Sunni scholars from Egypt, and he is famous for his works on Nahv, Arabic syntax, and also he has a good book on Ulum al-Quran, al-Itqan fi Ulum al-Quran, and also he has a Tafsir which is based on hadith called ad-Durr al-Mansur. But hadiths are all narrated from Sunni sources. And he says that a person went to the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam and he was called al-Barrath. He was called al-Barrath. He went to the Prophet and told him, Ya Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, mata taqumu as-sa'ah? When will the day of judgment come? وَقَدْ أَجْدَبَتْ بِلَادُنَا فَمَتَى تُخْسَبْ? And our land is now very much in need of rain. We are facing, problem, drought. So when the rain is coming? And then he said, وَقَدْ تَرَكْتُ إِمْرَأَتِي حُبْلًا فَمَتَى تَلِدْ? I have left my wife and she is pregnant. So when my child will be born? And وَقَدْ عَلِمْتُ مَا كَسَبْتُ الْيَوْمِ فَمَاذَا أَكْسِبُ غَدًا? Also he said, I know what I have done and what I have gained today. What I am going to gain tomorrow, I don't know. So you tell me. And then he said finally, وَقَدْ عَلِمْتُ بَأَيَّ أَرْضٍ وُلِدْتُ فَبَأَيَّ أَرْضٍ أَمُوتُ. He said, I know where I was born. So you tell me, where will I be dying? Okay? So Suyuti says that it was after this conversation that this ayah was revealed. Okay? This is mentioned by Suyuti. But Allama Tabatabai says that this conversation does not fully comply with ayah. You know where? When he asked, I left my wife pregnant, so when is she going to deliver? While the ayah doesn't talk about the time of delivery. The ayah talks about the sex. What is there? Is it boy or girl? Okay? So whoever has mentioned this story, even if it is true, it does not fit with the ayah. Maybe it was something else, or maybe, anyway, I am not going to judge about this. Just what I'm going to say, this does not fit completely into the ayah. This is one point. But Allama Tabatabai himself narrate from Imam Sadiq alayhi salam in the book Al-Khisal by Sheikh Saduq. Al-Khisal is a selection of hadith compiled by Sheikh Saduq rahmatullah alayh, and this particular hadith is from Imam Sadiq alayhi salam. And Imam Sadiq alayhi salam said, Allah, according to this hadith, ألا أخبركم بخمسة لم يطلع الله عليها أحدا من خلقه. Shall I inform you about 5 things that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has not informed any of his creatures? It means that the knowledge about these 5 are exclusive to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This is a hadith mentioned in this book. Of course, we need to verify the chain of narrations and to find it's authentic or not. But there is nothing wrong in that hadith. It can be well understood with some comments that inshallah I will make later. So the person who was there said, yes, please inform us about those 5 things. So then Imam recited this ayah. إن الله عنده علم الساعة وينزل الغيث ويعلم ما في الأرحام وما تدري نفس ماذا تكسب غدا وما تدري نفس بأي أرض تموت إن الله عليم خبير. So there are 5 things that usually human beings don't know. Some of them may never be known. Some of them may be somehow known if Allah gives that knowledge to some people. The knowledge about the day of judgment, which day that day will be, sending down the rain, what is in the tomb or stomach of the mother, and what is going to achieve tomorrow, and where he or she is going to die. So these are 5 things that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows, and normally human beings don't know. And then Allama Tabatabai makes a comment here. He says, we have many hadith in which Ahlul Bayt alayhimus salam or the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam have informed about their death or martyrdom, about their burial place. And even the Shia, the followers of Ahlul Bayt, through them knew that, for example, Imam Hussein is going to be martyred in Karbala. There was no doubt about this. Everyone who was close to Ahlul Bayt and the Prophet knew that. And this is mentioned also in Sunni sources. For example, the story of giving, some glass bottle to Salame, and saying that when this soil becomes, red, then it's the time that my Hussein is, martyred. So these are mentioned in Sunni sources, and of course in Shia sources. So what can be said about this ayah which suggests that no one knows the time or the place of birth and whatsoever? He says it's very clear. We have many like this in many cases. This is the general rule. that initially the knowledge about these things belong to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Okay? But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala can give this knowledge, disclose this knowledge to someone. Maybe someone specifically or a group of people, but it must all originate from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So there is no conflict between saying that Allah knows this and at the same time saying that the Prophet also knows this or informed us about the death of Imam Hussein alayhi salam. There is no conflict. Because whatever knowledge the Prophet has been received from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Even we human beings, if we through scientific investigations, when we learn something, this is the knowledge which we have learned from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala what says in the Quran? Says, أخرجكم من بطون أمهاتكم لا تعلمون شيئا وجعل لكم السمع والأبصار والأفئدة. Allah brought you into this world while you didn't know anything. Then Allah gave you the eyes, the ears, the hearts for understanding. So whatever knowledge you have is from Allah. You didn't have any knowledge. This knowledge doesn't belong to you. You remember we talked about this. Our knowledge is not from us, and this is why I cannot control my knowledge so that I don't lose it. By some accident, I may lose all my memory. So this doesn't belong to me. Okay? So, this knowledge, first of all, belongs to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala may disclose it to specific people or more generally to some other people. But we must note that it's all from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So, this is what we can say. Of course, it seems that the knowledge about the day of judgment, about al-Musa'ah, this is kept exclusive. This knowledge seems that is not shared with human beings. It seems so, you know. But for example, about what is in the, tomb of the mother, so that can be shared. Sometimes, in advance, people were informed, maybe they had dream or whatsoever, that they are going to have, for example, boy or girl. Or, for example, about the place of death, or what is going to happen tomorrow. Sometimes, you have true dream, and you know what is going to happen to you tomorrow. So this is not impossible, but it's all from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Like the issue of death. In some places in the Quran, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, Allah yatawaffa al-anfus hina mawtaha. Allah is the one who receives the souls when they die. In some places, Allah says that Malakul Maut, the angel of death, receives the soul. In some places, Allah says the apostles, Tawaffathu Rusuluna. Rusul means apostle, those who are sent, means angels. So sometimes he says that Allah is doing this. Sometimes Israel is doing this. Sometimes the angels. Is there any conflict between these? No. Because there is a hierarchy. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is above everyone. Then the one who is responsible for this is Israel. But Israel cannot do anything without blessing of Allah and permission of Allah. And Israel has some assistants. He may not himself receive all the souls. So this is why Quran says, Tawaffathu Rusuluna. So there is no conflict. We have also the same about the issue of shafa'ah. In some places Allah says no one can have this intercession In another place says that, for example, those people Allah is pleased with them, they can do this. So there is no conflict, and what is important is that you must have knowledge of the whole Quran. The problem with those people who have little knowledge is that they read one part of Quran and then quickly they interpret. You must have all knowledge of the Quran, because as we have in hadith, al-Quran yufassiru ba'dahu ba'da. Part of Quran interprets the other part of the Quran. Okay? You must, like for example, any other book. Sometimes in one chapter they say something, then in another chapter they elaborate on that, they gave some details, some modifications and whatsoever. So this is something which is important to know. I personally have this idea. I may be wrong. So you think about it and then you let me know. I say it's very beautiful that when we read this ayah, there is no same language. There is no same way of expression. Look at it again. إِنَّ اللَّهَ عِنْدَهُ عِلْمُ السَّاعَةِ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the one who has the knowledge about Sa'ah. This shows exclusiveness. Okay. And this is really exclusive to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But then it says وَيُنَزَّلُ الْغَيْثِ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala doesn't say that He knows when the rain is coming. He says He is the one who sends the rain. Of course, it may imply that He knows, because He is sending the rain, so He knows in the first place that when the rain is coming. But ayah is not talking about knowledge, it's talking about sending the rain. And who can send the rain other than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? No one. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says He knows what is in the tomb of mother. He doesn't say exclusively. He says He knows. About akhirah, He says, إِنَّ اللَّهَ إِنْدَهُ عِلْمُ السَّاعَةِ. And that is to show exclusiveness, because when in Arabic, I said this once before, when in Arabic something which must come later, if you bring it earlier, it may show exclusiveness, like إِيَّاكَ نَعْبُدُ. There is a difference between إِيَّاكَ نَعْبُدُ and saying نَعْبُدُكَ. نَعْبُدُكَ means we worship you, but إِيَّاكَ نَعْبُدُ means we only worship you, or you are only worshipped. Okay? So do you follow what I am saying? وَيَعْلَمُ مَا فِي الْأَرْحَامِ. He knows what is in the tomb of mothers. Of course He knows. We may know, we may not know. In most of the cases we don't know. So you see, He Himself is talking in the way that gives also some hint to the fact that He may share His knowledge with us in some places. And then, وَمَا تَدْرِي نَفْسٌ مَاذَا تَكْسِبُ غَدًا. Again it becomes exclusive. No one knows what is going to earn tomorrow, and no one knows in which land he's going to die. So, my idea is this. I may be wrong, but my idea is this. That among these 5 things, Allah is emphasizing on 3 of them being exclusive to Him, and no one can normally know that. That is ilmu sa'ah, what is going to happen tomorrow, and the place of death. These 3, there is no general way, no normal way, no natural way to know them. But the time of the rain is not His first concern. It's rain, sending rain itself, not the time of rain. And even if the time is implied indirectly, there is no obstacle to say that this can be shared by us and Allah can, disclose to us in a general way. The same about also in burial. There is no exclusiveness here. So Allah may share. So let me put all together what I said. So my idea is this, that among these 5, 3 are only known by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and His prophets may know somehow, somewhat, more or less, but there is no way for ordinary human beings to naturally know that. These are 3 of them. And that is ilm as-sa'ah, and that is what is going to happen tomorrow, and the place of death. And my idea is that even if the science is fully developed, still in the end, no scientist will be able to say what is going to happen tomorrow, 100%, or where I am going to die. Yes, they can kill me just now and say, okay, we know that you are going to die here. But this is not what is meant here. And ilm as-sa'ah. So these 3 are not known through normal ways of learning. Okay? Is it clear? Those 2, rain and what is in the tomb of mothers, Allah knows, but He doesn't say that you don't know. It means that there are some ways that we may learn to know them. Even without, for example, asking a prophet that whether my child would be a son or a boy, a daughter. Okay? And what I said, I think it's clear from Quran, but I may be wrong. So you don't need to accept what I'm saying. But I think if you yourself recite this ayah again and again, you will find that there is a difference in the expression. When it comes to those 3, it's very clear that it's exclusive. Okay? It means that there is no normal way, no natural way for learning that. You must refer to Allah and His prophets. But for those 2, it's not in that language. Okay? So, what is important, maybe more than anything else, is to make us humble. This ayah is to make us humble, to know that there are many important things that we don't know. We don't know the beginning of our life. We don't know the end of our life. And also we don't know the between. What is going to happen, tomorrow. So our knowledge is very limited. And this must make us very humble. We shouldn't feel that, we know everything. And the story of Karun. Karun was a very rich man. And the Quran says he had lots of, money, jewelries, that when they wanted to carry just the keys of his, treasury boxes, a group of strong men were needed to carry just the keys, and they were soon, tired. وَآتَيْنَاهُ مِنَ الْكُنُوزِ مَا إِنَّ مَفَاتِحَهُ لَتَنُوءُ بِالْعُصْبَةِ. Means we have given him so much treasure that carrying the keys made a group of, men very tired. Just carrying the keys. But what happened to this person was that when he was asked to remember Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in what has been given, okay, so that, to spend it on poor people, in the way of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, ابتغ فيما آتاك الله الدار الآخرة ولا تنس نصيبك من الدنيا. What did he say? He said, إنما أوتيته على علم من عندي. He said, why do you speak about Allah and what Allah has given me? I have been given all this because of my knowledge. I was very good businessman. I had the knowledge and expertise. I learned in university. I have degree. So he said, I have not been given anything from Allah. So this is when, we have a small knowledge, little knowledge, we may be, proud of ourselves. Of course, the more knowledge people have, the more humble they become. Some people say that those who go, for example, to Hawze or, to learn Islamic studies, after short time, because they learn, some terms, something, they think they are God. And people, don't know anything, they must worship them. Later, they come down and they think that they are prophet. Then they become down, they think that they are marja. After 6-7 years, they think they are marja. Then when they go more forward, they realize that they're just a small talaba. They don't know anything. And this is when you look at Maraja. Maraja never say that, we are, oceans of knowledge or whatsoever. Whatever you have in your mind, ask us. No, they say, we have some knowledge. And they are more humble than many maybe ordinary, talabas. Because this is the real sign of knowledge. That when you have true and good knowledge, it must make you humble. And we had this ayah yesterday, I told you, إِنَّمَا يَخْشَى اللَّهَ مِنْ عِبَادِهِ الْعُلَمَاءِ. So if there is ilm, it must be accompanied with humbleness in front of Allah and His servants. Ilm cannot be next to arrogance, next to selfishness, if it is real ilm. So this ayah reminds us that our knowledge is very limited. We don't know the beginning, we don't know the end, we don't know what is happening in between. And we must always look at Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's guidance and try to understand from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's guidance through Quran, through the teachings of the Prophet and Imams, what is going to be best for us, and then practice that in our life. Okay, in this way, we finish Surah Luqman, and thanks to Allah, we have been able to complete the surah. Of course, what we said is just some short introduction to surah, and no one can say, that we have exhausted all aspects, all dimensions. Just we had quick, reading of surah, and inshallah, I hope what has been said would be, inshallah, beneficial for all of us. وآخر دعوانا أن الحمد لله رب العالمين. Is there any question?
As Allah says in this ayah, He is know in which land everyone he will die. So Allah knows the reasons for the death of each one. Because as we in the society, there are some people, they die from suffering from disease, others from accident. So Allah knows the reasons for each death of the people.
Which part of surah you talk?
There is a point. Allah says that He is always Allah know in which land we will die.
Yeah.
So Allah.
In which land?
Yeah.
So Allah knows where we are going to die. Not
Yeah.
Where?
Where?
Yeah. Means in which place?
So Allah knows the reasons for each death of the people.
Allah knows that, but that is not what is this ayah saying. This ayah is referring to the place of death, not to the reason for death. Of course, Allah knows that. But here the concern is that no one knows where we are going to die except Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Where, yeah? Not why, where.
because in the society there are the sentence or statement, many they use is that each death have the reasons from Allah. This statement is true. Each death have the reasons from Allah.
Yeah. Allah is the one who gives life and death. هو الذي خلق الموت والحياة. Death comes from Allah and life is from Allah. Because the one who gives life can take away the life. You remember the story of Namrud? I told you he had a debate with Prophet Ibrahim, and Prophet Ibrahim said that my Lord is the one who gives life and causes death. And Namrud said, I am also doing the same. Okay? Namrud said, I am doing the same. So he asked a prisoner to be released and some innocent person to be killed. So he said, I am giving life and death. But this was not the real meaning of giving life and death. Even if someone commits a murder, that person is not causing death. That person is instrumental. But if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants to keep that person alive, He can. Okay, thank you very much for your patience during these sessions, and inshallah Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will enlighten inshallah our hearts to understand Quran better, and inshallah to practice what we learn from the Quran inshallah.